how to make a square into the bunny that you see. I call this Brave Bunny. This is not my creation, but my version of a bunny that I saw on the internet. All right, so this creature can be made in any variety of fibers as long as you start with a square. So this is one I did in acrylic fiber, and I used these easy Amazon eyes and nose, and I added a pom pom for the tail. It's filled with leftover yarn, but it can be filled with any kind of teddy bear stuffing. Okay. Everything is closed. It's actually very, very easy to do. So you can generally change the features on the face by using different eyes. If you are good with embroidery, you can make your own embroidered eyes after the fact. I find that when I am decorating the face of a bunny, I do it before I close the head, but we'll get there. All right, so this is a bunny with a white pom-pom. This is a bunny, of course, with the same colored blue as the body. And by simply changing up different eyes and slight spacing, you can have the face look different. All right, so how do we do something like this? We start very simply with a square. So you can choose to crochet a square. You can choose to knit a square. You can choose however you want a square. You could start with needle and thread and use a square washcloth. These are some quick and easy examples of squares that were created for this project. These examples here were made on a plastic circular Addi-express 46 needle king size machine. But you can use any square. In terms of the plastic machine that I used, I created a tube on the machine of 46 needles, 30 to 35 rows. So certainly, as long as you have a square of some kind, however you choose to do it, you can crochet it however you prefer. And these are just some fiber examples, really fuzzy one. Because mine are tubes, they're double thick, which helps for the bigger stitches because then nothing falls out or is see-through. Now, how big or small your square is does not matter, as long as you are forming it in the same method. In case you don't know, whenever using fiber and a needle, an easy way to thread it is to take your fiber at the end, fold it into a U shape, hold it between your index finger and your thumb, and bring the end, the hole, and just kind of pop it through. Then you can pinch it from the top and pull it, and it'll come through. most of the time. So that's how I thread yarn into a darning needle. Starting with a square, take your square and divide it in half. You want to mark a triangle on your square. So, easiest way to do that is fold it in half, and I put a stitch marker here. Whatever square you start with, mark the folded middle of your square. And then I marked the same point on both sides. Now my preference on this project is to count down 12 stitches. So I did that and marked it. And then I counted down 12 stitches and marked it. So basically, I have a line or a row from left and right, the corner to the midpoint, and a corner to midpoint. So what we're doing here is we are creating a triangle, okay? So now that you've plotted out your triangle, let's get a needle and thread, or in this medium, we're going to use an arm length, or rather arm span, finger to finger if you hold your hands all the way out to the side. A bit of yarn that matches my project, and a darning needle. Now because my project is a tube that has two sides, this is going to be done this way. I'm going to start my needle by tying off at one of the markers. I like to start just here on the right. These are just for demonstration. And so what I want to do is I want to anchor my yarn. So I'm going to go all the way to the end of my very long bit of yarn. And when I am about 2 inches from the end, I'm simply going to tie a knot. And I'll do everything on the camera so you can see that. Okay. Just a square knot. Nice and simple. Now it's secured as a foundation point. And now I'm going to run my needle across the row all the way over to the other side. I'm basically creating a triangular drawstring. So what we've created now is a triangular drawstring. So looking at this, these are the ears that will curl when you pull on the drawstring, and this is the face. Okay? How much or how little you fill the face will change the shape of the face. So when we get to that point, I really filled this one. So the face is really quite round and kind of like the bottom of an egg. But if you underfill it, you might have a little rounder of a shape. This is kind of egg shape. So more on this later. This is a further step. Okay, so if you gently start to pull on your drawstring, you can already start to see it. So this would be, decide which side is best. If you're using these 2 layers like I am, you want to make sure you use the side that looks best, because one will be more hidden and one will be more shown. So in this scenario, both inside and outside look fine. So I'm not hiding anything. So I'm using my fingers to kind of push inside of the face. And then I'm going to pull on the drawstring. Now because it's attached where we attached it, it won't just slip out. Now you can see that face much more. So when it comes to helping it form, the ears will naturally curl if you help them. So at this point, this will be the face, and there's no filling, so it's really small and flat, and the ears look huge. So at this point, this will be the outside, and this will be the inside. So now we look at our decorations. I choose to use these Amazon purchased eyes and noses. You can choose to use whatever you want, but I prefer to use something easy to use. And while we have access to the inside of the face, this is why we put the eyes on now. Now, note that right now the face is not very filled. It's not stuffed, so the full shape of it isn't there yet. But we do know our midpoint is right down here. So we'll want to put our nose somewhere in the middle. Okay? So let's plot what nose and eyes we're going to use while we have access to it. I have these pink ones, which are kind of cute. And I will plot putting the nose maybe there. Oh, and how are these? They are a graduated post that you put this on and it comes out. And then what I like to do is I use my lighter and I melt the edge so it doesn't come undone. And that way it grips the fabric from the outside and inside at once. So this is what happened here. When I put the nose on, I put the back piece inside and I melted the very tip of it so it won't come off very easily. But with anything, if you pull on it hard enough, it'll come off. If you are concerned about somebody or something chewing on these or having them come off, then you'll want to do a fabric eye that you sew on, or do something simple with regards to embroidery thread for an eye or nose. All right, so let's plot our nose. Where'd that other one go? There we go. So down the middle, probably there. Okay. Now I found that usually you can count the spaces for putting the eyes in. So let's decide to put maybe some green eyes. So we're gonna go one over and then one up. Maybe right there. Now right now it looks very close. It's because we haven't filled it yet or stuffed it. So another one over and one up. Okay, but when we stuff it, the face will kind of move out like that. And maybe we'll move the nose down one more. That's better. Already better. So do what make sense to you? So now we're going to turn it over with these parts plotted. An eye, a nose. Push them all the way through. And now we're going to put the stoppers on them. I've pushed it all the way down. Do the same with the others. That away. Now with the trick I use, so I'm going to take my lighter, hold the post out, and light the outside, and then you can blow on it and then press on the plastic with maybe the metal versus the other plastic. So that's what I'm going to do here. It's very easy to do. See that it's on fire, that's perfectly fine. Now it's hot and I can just push the plastic to be like a stopper. It does kind of smell, but that should lock it in. Now you can do the same for the other. Okay, because this fiber here is actually acrylic. This is the reason why I'm holding it like this. If it was highly flammable, just be careful. And if it has natural fibers or fur, like this mohair one, it might smell like burnt fur. And you can see that it's quite furry. Then you just try to be extra careful and just try to hold the area you want to heat up. There, both eyes are done. Let's do the nose. Of course, if you choose to use these, you could choose not to melt the back. But if they fall off and you don't have full access, then it would be much harder to put them back in without cutting. All right, good. So our eyes and nose are now perfectly attached. So now this is the inside, so we're going to push it back out. All right, so now what we're going to do, now we're going to get our stuffing. And I'm just going to take my scissors and cut it into smaller pieces so there's no huge lumps. It can be placed as needed, and it works nicely. This fiber was washed and it works quite well. So your question might be, how much do you use? Well, as much as you like without having it be too distorted. So depending how big your stitches are on your knitted square, this machine creates rather large stitches. So if I really forced it, it would start to look funny. So here we go. Let's put some stuffing in his face. Okay. So this is the triangular area. Just take some stuffing, stick it in there. You actually don't need these stitch markers anymore, so let's take those off. The stitch markers were just a visual aid. All right. Now, because we used a triangular shape, the edges of the triangle will still need to have some stuffing. It's not round, it just looks a bit rounded. All right, so there we go. All right, and when we pull on the drawstring tightly, all of the stuffing should disappear. So let's turn this around and have a look. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to pull on the drawstring. Now, if your fiber is weak, you might find it breaks here. So just go slow, be careful. If your fiber breaks on your yarn, then just start over with the triangular drawstring. You can form it still a little bit. Let's have a look. All right, so there we go. I pulled it quite firm. Let's remind the ears to twirl, to curl. Let's remind that one to curl too. Good. I think it looks great. Now in this example, the ears look quite big. So I can choose to fill a face more, or I could just leave the ears really quite big, whatever you prefer. So however you make your drawstring triangle is however the proportions will work out, as well as how much you stuff it. I might stuff it a little bit more. Okay. I want to stuff it under the chin. All right, so we stuffed it. Let's have another look. Good. And now you won't truly know the size of it until you've closed everything. Now it looks monstrous, doesn't it? Ah, maybe I'll take some out. All right. So now the step when we decide that we've done enough is to pull on the drawstring until we've completely closed all these access points. So it brings all those pieces together. This is your bunny. Now what we want to do is we want to secure how tight our drawstring is. So we pull it nice and tight. Now we left that yarn tail there. This yarn tail. So let's tie it. Now we can do another square knot. Okay. So there was one. There is two. So now the neck is secured. And now we need to remind the ears to curl. Okay, so you still have your needle and your yarn. So now what you want to do is first we want to secure the back of the neck. We can close the neck. So to do that, you simply take your needle from where it is and then go across once or twice, okay? So we're right on the edge here. So I want to take my needle and I want to go to the edge and bring the edges together. Okay? Straightforward. sure nothing tangles. All right, start over. Starting on the edge, it's coming from the left side. We want to just join these rows. There's a column of stitches here and a column of stitches there. Just go from the left over to the right and go through. So now we're looking at the back of the head. We've only done one pass on the neck. We can do another one. Why not? So the same path again. There we go. There we are. Now we want to take our needle and we want to bring the edge of the ear to the edge of the ear. And as we are pretty much right there, we're going to take our needle and go to the very edge, the small beginning part of the ear, right here. Okay, just put your needle through that. So now we are going to join the other edge of the top of the head ear. So right there. And let's put the needle through both those areas. So this is the very bottom of the ears. We want to bring those points together. There. So now it has a better shape, almost like a leaf. So this is awesome. Now what we still need to do is when we look inside the ear, if we stick our finger down there, there's some stuffing. So an easy way to finish the inside of the ear is just take your needle and you can just go in this side of the ear and go to the lowest point of the inside of the ear. We're just kind of do a zigzag stitch at the lowest point possible, just to kind of close up this area. So I've got my needle here, it comes out. I'm just going to go across, grab a little bit, come back, grab a little bit, then go where I was again, just back and forth. And that just closes that tiny space, that opening in the inside of the ear. Pulling it tight. Now that ear is completely finished. It has this nice shape and the inside won't have any stuffing come out. All right, so now we'll take our needle and we need to kind of go to the base of this ear on the right. So we're going to just move it into the head and have your needle come out between the ears. All right. And so now we want to bring the right ear top and bottom together, just like we did the left. So we're going to go through the base edge of the ear on the top and the bottom. Look how nicely that comes together already. So now once again we need to close the ear up. This has a hole, this one doesn't. So we're going to use that same method. I'm going to take our needle and just kind of come inside the ear. There we go. And then once again, we're going to zigzag back and forth just to close the ear. So on the inside, grab a little bit, then go across, grab a little bit, and just kind of do this back and forth. There we go. And we'll pull it through again. All right, both ears are now finished. Now we want to take our running yarn where we are. We want to go through the ear to the point at the back of the head. Okay, here we go. There we go. We're on the left ear, just underneath at the back of the neck. Great. So we're now looking at the back of the neck. This is where we can do our second pass on the back of the neck to help keep it closed. Great. So this is what the face looks like now. So depending on how much attachment to the base of the ear will depend on how, and the fiber, how the ears themselves sit. Okay, there we go. So now what we do is we turn our guy over, and what we need to do something called a mattress stitch. Now, don't have to worry about this extra yarn tail at this time. We can hide it later. So when we are looking at the back of the head, let's recognize a row or column of stitches, okay? So we want to find the edge. So when you look here, this is the edge, all right? And now we look on the right, it's a little rotated. This is the edge. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do something called mattress stitch. And when we do a mattress stitch, usually you would just attach one yarn bar. So a yarn bar, in this example, if you see this knitting here, so this is a stitch. So if we need a yarn bar, we are going to grab this one here. Do you see that there? That's a yarn bar. Now with this bigger gauge stitches, there's one, and then there's one further along, etc. What we're going to do basically is we're going to take our yarn path, we're going to catch a yarn bar, go directly across, catch its yarn bar, and then do like an E. So we'll come here, go over here, go across, come back, go a little further, and we're just basically doing these spirals. And then when we pull tight on it, it'll bring them together. Like you won't even notice that there was a join there. We are finishing the back of the bunny. So if you look here, unless you truly, truly look strongly, you don't usually see too much of where the join was. And that was the pink bunny, and here's the blue bunny. Now, the row might be a little bit snug to each other, but most people don't even notice it's there, mostly because it's hidden behind the ears and the tail. Okay, so let's do the mattress stitch. Now I find this easier if you put it on its side. Okay, So where I am, stay on the same column. That'll make a nicer join. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go under the first yarn bar. Here it is here. Okay, so I'm going to come to the left and now I'm going to locate the same parallel yarn bar on this seam on this side. So let's make sure that we're finding that edge again. There it is there. Okay, so in this example, the yarn bar is here. Okay. One and two. And basically, you're just attaching this row of yarn bars to the parallel one. So this is where I was, and now we're going to go down to one more yarn bar further. We are joining this one here. And now if you go over the same area twice, that's okay. At first it doesn't look like much, but the more you do it, the more you create that seam that's mostly hidden. So now we'll go back down here. We'll go to this extra yarn bar here. It's good that my needle's green. And you see that there? This is called mattress stitch. Actually, I believe in mattress stitch, they just kind of go back and forth. But I wanted to have an even seam. So I like to make spirals. Okay. We'll go through and then we'll go a little further. And then as you do it, staying on the same columns, it starts to close. So you want to repeat that until the whole back is closed. So you will continue doing this until this edge and this edge are closed. All right, let's continue. It's harder to do on the video. And if you do it right, there are no gaps and everything looks great. If you do it wrong, try to undo it, unless you could live with it the way it is. There's our next bar. There's our yarn bar right there. How does it come up? Again, because of the stitches being so big on this gauge, I like to just reinforce it. There we are, another yarn bar. You can see it's starting to look like it was always joined. That's what mattress stitch is. Although this is probably a version of it more than the specific exact mattress stitch. So the good thing with knitting in terms of a fiber or even crochet to a point, if you need to fudge something to a point, you could. Just run some extra needle, darning needle, and fiber through it to give it more support. All right. And then pull it snugly, but not too snug. There. So the back is now completely closed. When you look at this, it's still a bunny face, bunny front, bunny back, and it's closed. I think it's mostly closed. You don't have to worry about that. Now, if this bothers you, this little gap, just go back with your needle and secure it. More than likely, you won't see it. There you go. So at this point, as I mentioned, you want to tie off or go through the bottom and secure it. So one way of tying a knot is, you see I made this loop. I came out here and I went in there, and this is where I am. And one way to tie a knot or to create some tension, simply wrap 2 times around the needle and go through it. And then tie it. Now it's fairly tight. Now you can do it again. And what I like to do is I go all the way through until there's a little bit left. And then again, 1, 2. So it's 2 on my needle, and then go 3 through it. All right, and that creates a bit of a knot. So now when I pull on it, this is where it's attached. It's not going to pull anything that was connected here. So now we want to do a drawstring. So drawstring is simply through the project up, all the way around on an even way. So I'm going to follow along the edge. So it doesn't matter where, just evenly go down, go up, go down, go up, etc. And then when I pull on it, after I stuff it, it'll form the bottom of the bunny's butt. Okay, so now we're going to pull tight, or rather pull it through. So now we've done from here to here. I'm going to do the rest. So now we'll get some more of our stuffing, and we'll stuff the bunny. So we are basically creating this rotund bottom part. And this is where we joined the bottom with the drawstring. Let's get some more to dough. All right, in you go. Now if I pulled it tight now, the bunny bottom might be too small to support itself. But varying these things will give you different shapes. A little more stuffing. So if you are making a fairly translucent bunny, try to use filling that isn't a contrast color. And that might work well. Let's see. Yeah, that might be it. Okay, so let's do it. All right, so now that we have our drawstring, now we pull it tight. Good. Now a trick to a nice bottom seam is to run your needle throughout indiscriminately, round and around and around, and pulling it nice and firm, and that'll bring everything in so it's not puckered like this is. Okay, so there we go, nice and tight. Now what you could do at this point is you could tie a tiny knot so that it stays nice and tight. And to do that, I've just gone through the edge, and to tie a knot, 1, and that'll be a nice tight point. It's not full knot, it's just a twist. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to continue going around the circle. I'm going to just do it this way. And there you go. That looks good to me. All right, and then we just plop them down. This is a big bottom bunny. And just kind of shape it as you wish. And there you go. So I will tie off the yarn tail and then hide this extra one here. So when I am tying off a knot, I prefer to go where no one's going to see, which will be at the pom-pom butt, the bunny tail. But it's basically hidden anyways. So this is how I tie off. I want to create tension, so I have the yarn coming out of its stitch, locate a yarn bar, and then using the same method, wrap once, let's try twice. And then when we gently pull that through, it forms a sort of knot or tension point, and just tight. And now I find if you do at least 2 of those, move the yarn around a bit, it secures it. So I'll just come back to another point and do it again. Find a bar and wrap 1, 2, and I'm holding it with my thumb just for good housekeeping so nothing gets stuck there. Now, rule of thumb, never make a knot and cut a tiny tail. So there's a knot. Let me hide my yarn tail. So what I'm going to do is just go anywhere through the dude. Where is he? There he is. There you go. Now the trick to hiding your yarn tail is pulling it tight so there's tension, cutting the yarn tail. Now the rest of the yarn tail zipped inside. Cool. So on some of the bunnies, I would put some yarn around the neck to kind of give it a better neck, but not essential. So let's take care of this yarn tail. Here, thread the yarn into your darning needle. They do make threaders for it, but why? Now, if you find that your yarn tail is shorter than your needle, the trick there is to first put the needle in your project and then thread the needle. And then we bury the needle to the bottom, and it's going to come right off. So it's inside. At this point, if you wanted, you could create a pom-pom. It's probably better that if you are wanting to make a pom-pom, that you look up that instructions separately. So this is a pom-pom I created with a pom-pom maker. It's a little rough and tough, but there you are. To attach this, I would put both ends on my darning needle. So let's do that. Or at least do one anyways. Might as well do both. One then the other. It's a little bit easier. There we go. Approximate where you want the pom-pom to be. Right there. That little seam is a good way to tell midpoint. Maybe a little bit higher. It's pretty robust looking pom-pom. And then you just basically try to secure it best you can by nice firm attachment to the bunny. So one way of attaching it is to take one of your yarn tails out and put it through the base of the bunny. And then what you can do is simply take the needle off and do a square knot to better attach the tail to the bunny. And now what again I'm going to do is thread my needle with both yarn tails and bury the yarn tail within the project. There you go. And pull tight. Don't cut your bunny. There you go. Now, of course, I did this pom-pom quickly when I made the pom-pom. So feel free to shape it if you need to. And that is it. This is our baby bunny, our brave bunny as I like to call him. You could add whiskers if you want. You could pretty much do anything. Add a big red bow around his neck. I like him how he is. I like that you could see it. A bit of his tail when he sits there looking at you. And that's it. That is the bunny. He has too much holes by his eyes. I see too much fiber in there. What you could do is you could weave it. So what I did, when you look at both of these, you will note that you can see a bit of the dark stuffing between his eyes, where at this one you see some horizontal yarn. So with this one, just to pretty up the face, I took an extra long bit of yarn and I ran it back and forth, almost like weaving underneath the vertical bars of the face. Now you don't have to do that, but it is really easy to do if you want to beautify it, if your stitches are too big. So there you go. This is a tube created on a plastic machine. This is 30 to 35 rows. These are 46 stitches across all the way around. This is scrap yarn, project yarn, and scrap yarn. Now the scrap yarn is just protecting the live stitches here and the live stitches there on both sides. So you have this tube, it came off your Addi machine, and you are, how do I make a square out of something like this? Well, first of all, find the inside without undoing any of the stitches and have a look. Where is your yarn tail? So this is the project yarn and it's the yarn tail. Now if we want to make this into a square, let's fold it so your yarn tail is completely in the corner. So if I pull it flat like this, the yarn tail is on the far right, and I can see 2 stitches by my thumb. Do you see those 2 stitches? So what we're going to do is I'm just going to pinch those 2 stitches and switch hands because I'm right-handed. All right, so now the yarn tail is in the apex of the left, and those 2 stitches we pointed out are here and here. So let's close very easily. Let's close one tube end by using the loops already on the project. All you need is a crochet hook that will work, and that was one of any size that is small enough to maneuver between the loops that are there. So in this example, we have a loop here and a loop here. So I'm going to start with this bottom loop being held with this scrap yarn and simply go to this top loop and put one to the other. Now because I went on the top, now I'm going to go to the bottom. So I'm going to do the same. One through the other. And so we did the bottom, so now we'll do the top. How, all right, just put it through. Now we go to the bottom. Try not to miss any of the loops. The dark blue is our project yarn, and then we just keep going back and forth. All right, so here's a good example. when you look at this one, you may think this is the loop. But if you see the scrap yarn is trapping this one right here. If you're not sure, pull on your scrap. That confirms it there. Because it's important that you have the live loop, not the one below. So you can see it's creating a nice folded edge at the top. We're almost halfway. And this is a good trick that I saw online. Right, and as you get close to the left side, there's not too many stitches left to catch. Alright, now we'll do this bottom one. And then we'll just see if we can see where we go from here. Now, if you're not really sure where to go from here, that's fine. At this point, we're going to remove the scrap. And that's this lighter colored stuff. So, carefully using your scissors, you can cut the tail, one of the legs of the initial rows of scrap. And depending on the fiber you used, you might be able just to pull on it. Alright. Now sometimes it depends on where in it that you pull, that it releases or not. Be careful not to cut your project yarn. I'm just going to turn it over. Now this is a fiber that I'm reusing as filling. If you pull too hard at the wrong point, you're going to find yourself a bit of a rat's nest. It's okay, just be patient. Work your way to your foundation row. And if you pull the right one, it'll come right out. Sometimes you just need to gently stretch where those stitches are getting caught up. And then unthread them later. So let's turn it back around. Let's have a look at it. So I haven't missed any loops. Nice defined edge. And over here in the corner, I couldn't see before. There's just one more loop to catch, so I'll just go on over and pick it up. So now here's the yarn tail from inside. What I'm going to do is just kind of finish with this last loop and loop. Now this is crochet. You're going to take your yarn tail and just put it through that last loop. Okay, very easy. And then from here, we want to bury that yarn tail after securing it. So what I like to do, you don't even need a needle. If you have a small enough crochet hook, you could just run your crochet hook on the inside, since this is a tube that's two flat pieces, or rather a tube that's flat. And come out with your needle about where the yarn tail is finished. And then I just hold it as a loop and gently bring it inside. And I just give it a bit of a snug. There we are. There we go. And so now what I want to do is I want to do a bit of a knot here and maybe again, and then just hide the yarn tail away from the edge. So find yourself a yarn bar. There's a yarn bar. And we can same way with the needle. Now it's wrapped around. Let's bury that. There you go. That's enough for me. And again, hiding that yarn tail. Pull it tighter, cut it. It hides it inside. And that's the edge of your square. So you want to repeat that for this end here, and then you have a nice square. One that would look like that. This was used with two different yarns, so it's a bit of a fatter piece. But it just makes this wonderful edge.